Hi everyone, it's Glitchy here, and I want to start this video off by saying that this is my third iteration of this script, and I also want to explain what went wrong with the first two versions. The first version of this video was genuinely just a huge nostalgia bait, where I explained my roots in the Destiny franchise and went through some very basic wants for the future of Bungie. It felt soulless and didn't feel like I was being genuine, as I've tried to be in all of my videos. And the second version was blatantly just hate farming, where I explained everything I hate about Destiny 2 in its current state and made it seem like I was just attacking the devs and telling them what they need to do for the next iteration of whatever they decide to do. But I realized that as much as I just want to yell at the mic and be angry for what has happened to one of my favorite games of all time, I just want to talk about Bungie and talk about my hopes and dreams if this company can finally come back to the spotlight and become what I remember them being when I went to the midnight launch for Destiny 14 years ago. So how about we get into this look into Bungie's world, as well as my thoughts on what's been going on with them recently. So a huge part of what was lacking with both of my iterations of the scripts before was that I didn't talk about any of the mismanagement that has been going on with Bungie for quite a while at this point, and we don't really know if it's ended at this point, since now Bungie isn't working independently under the PlayStation banner. They are now fully being monitored and no longer have their own team of executives. But when they did, the gross negligence that Bungie was constantly under forced them to push out a lot of content that wasn't ready, as well as primarily focusing on monetization. This led to huge moments in Destiny 2's history of failures such as Lightfall and most of the seasons that came after it. Even Final Shape being a critical success wasn't enough because it didn't bring back enough players, and a lot of the ones who did come back felt like it was a good off-ramp to stop playing the game in general. So when Edge of Fate finally came around, that meant lows that Destiny hadn't seen since Curse of Osiris back when Destiny 2 first came out. And this was also after having an overall narrative win with Episode Heresy right before the launch, which the episode system, to my knowledge, has been scrapped, and we're just kind of back to a seasonal system, which Edge of Fate is where basically all of Bungie's real problems with Destiny 2 kind of cemented themselves. Things like the portal, which were made with good intentions, were instantly ridiculed and hated by the community, including myself. And the portal as a whole was made specifically to be an answer to the community's cries for an easier to understand menu on what to do in Destiny as a whole. And they accomplished this by sunsetting basically everything in the game and choosing for themselves what content gives you what items. Now, on paper, this seems like a perfectly fine system, but there is an underlying problem that has been plaguing Destiny ever since Beyond Light came out, and that being sunsetting. It has always been a problem. And quite frankly, it was the start of a lot of issues inside of Destiny, as it got rid of the onboarding process the game had, which was the original campaign, as well as one of the best DLCs made in Destiny's history. And obviously, this has been hated by the community since it happened, but let's be honest, the damage was done when Forsaken and the Red War were taken out. The Cosmodrome New Light experience was easily the worst thing they could have ever replaced it with. It doesn't really explain how the game works, and it isn't really supplemented with enough free content to support the players who had just decided to start playing Destiny, forcing people to buy years and years worth of content and not expecting them to ask questions about little references and problems that had happened in Forsaken and the Red War. It's kind of a big ask, and this is all kind of related to the portal sunsetting things and just how much content it has truly put away, besides what they rotate all of the time now. And I just want to ask you a question. What would you think if I told you it would be easier to let you know what's left after Edge of Fate came out instead of listing what got sunset? Because around 80% of the game basically disappeared overnight. Content people paid for ever since Shadowkeep basically exploded and was now put into a hat for Bungie to pick at random. so they could throw it into a rotation weekly. So you can choose in the portal what you really want to do to get a specific reward. And again, that sounds good on paper until the first week of Edge of Fate comes out, and every single fucking person is running the exact same activity because it's the easiest way to get any amount of progress, because yet again, we have reset the power system and now we have made it extremely hard to get any amount of progress. Then they nerf all of those activities because, well, it's too damn easy compared to what they intended. It's a huge 2 steps forward, 200 steps back scenario, where the only one who comes out on top is the UI designer of the portal, who's probably laughing his ass off because he single-handedly killed a game. And the portal has also stripped the entire game of soul. The portal just lacks literally anything that screams, hey, I love the thing I'm working on. It looks like every other game now, when Destiny is anything but every other game. It is the best systems in the market right now. You can't find gameplay like Destiny has anywhere else. But this isn't really the only issue that is killing Destiny. We might be in a content drought, and that may have been caused by their emergency work for Marathon, but they certainly haven't made it any damn better. Bungie has damn near forgotten about Destiny 2 in light of Marathon, which, hey man, I get it. They're in a spot where they need to focus on Marathon, especially since the player base isn't exactly all there. But there's one thing that they're doing with Marathon that they have refused to do with Destiny for the longest time, and that is actually dealing with the cheaters. It's pretty damn funny that cheats have shown up this quickly with Marathon, and I have my own thoughts on that, but nowadays with Destiny, there is no such thing as legit gameplay anymore, apparently. Since the numbers are so low for the player base, there is an insane amount of cheaters inside of Trials of Osiris, and even when the most recent raid was released, 70% of the players that completed it during the contest mode were fucking cheaters. It's unbelievable what has happened at this point and what little is being done to stop it. There is barely any word on what is going to be done about it with Marathon, besides the fact that we know that bans are permanent whenever somebody does get exposed for cheating. So why is it not the exact same thing for Destiny? Which there is a huge difference, because Destiny 2 is free and Marathon is a paid experience. Bungie can't afford to potentially push people away permanently with Destiny 2, since they can make a lot more money off of somebody who decides to buy all of the expansions instead of somebody who has already sunk $40 to $60 on Marathon, where their only way back into the game is spending even more money. But in doing nothing, they have pushed even more people away, since now people are just done. There is nothing to do, and what little there is just ruined by other people deciding to ruin other people's fun. So what is there to do about all these issues at this point? Well, honestly, the options are limited, because both real ways of doing it are just a gamble. Which the first option really is just undoing a lot of the issues and actually just fix everything, which costs a lot of time and money on a game that isn't making a dime for them nowadays. Then the second option is making a new Destiny game, which a lot of the community has just been begging for on a constant basis at this point. And can you imagine what it must feel like to work on the Destiny 2 dev team, where the entire community is just begging you to stop working on the game and start working on something else entirely? Just telling you to do a better job this time. They're currently working on an update and probably another expansion for Destiny 2 right now, and we are just telling them to give up. This must be the most demoralizing job in the entire industry right now, besides working for Activision in general. But I guess this is the section where we talk about Destiny 3 and Destiny Classic like everybody else. And yeah, I agree, we need both at this point. But at the same time, I want to explain exactly what I want from Destiny 3 at the very least. So overall, I want to say a lot of what is in Destiny gameplay-wise is basically the bare minimum. And I'm talking current Destiny. Like Destiny 2, everything that's in there right now, bare minimum, it's non-negotiable. And all of these concepts that we already know, Bungie needs to be able to expand on them. So we feel like we truly needed a sequel to be able to experience these systems. And by complex, the scale I want is much more in line with games like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV. If we're going to do the MMO thing, Bungie needs to go all in and simply never swap off of Destiny 3 to hopefully, don't ever make a Destiny 4. The thought of that horrifies me in general, and I hope we never get there. But in the complexity, we also need to look back at a game like Destiny 1, where a lot of the game felt very meaningful. And when there was difficult content, it felt hard to complete. Destiny 2, at this point, has devolved into waiting for cooldowns and seeing how much damage you do. There isn't as much of a focus on neutral play, and everyone has become a lot more focused on simply playing the class that does more damage than the others. So I'm hoping that if we switch over to the eventuality of Destiny 3, then Bungie looks back instead of just what worked most recently, because I want things to feel a lot more methodical than they do now. I want every single move I make to matter, and I want to be punished really hard for making a mistake, whether that be inside of PvE or PvP. Make Nightfalls really hard again. Make raids hard all year round instead of just 3 days out of the year. And another thing Bungie needs to do in general, instead of just for Destiny 3, is an in-house anti-cheat. I genuinely believe the game would do much better if they came out and said they have an anti-cheat that should ban someone automatically if there's something wrong with what they are doing. For Destiny Classic's case, I don't think there's much that needs to be done. I genuinely believe if they released it on Steam at literally any point for like $30, it would be an instant hit. All they need to do is include the expansions and maybe increase the fidelity a little bit so it doesn't look so far away from what D2 is at right now. But with all of that out of the way, we need to look at another portion of the right now for Bungie, which, if you didn't realize, they just released a new game for the first time since 2017, and it isn't doing too hot at the moment. Marathon, which at this point I've released 2 videos about and have played about 130 hours at this point, is struggling barely a month after release from the numbers that we can see publicly. We know that the copies sold is around 1.2 million, and the budget was pretty big, around somewhere from the $200 to $300 million range. So just doing the raw calculations as well as only doing the math for the standard edition of the game, they made $48 million before all of the other platforms took their cut. PlayStation probably wasn't too happy about that, but that also is including the number of people who bought the deluxe edition and anyone who might be buying cosmetics, which all of this really sucks because the game is so fucking good. There genuinely isn't anything like it on the market right now. As someone who has played Arc Raiders and Tarkov, Marathon is easily the best extraction shooter on the market, especially since Arc basically has zero endgame and is focusing much more on the PvE player base, as well as Tarkov being a much more hardcore player base that has been stuck with the game for a long time. But Marathon had a huge uphill battle with the messy development and all the drama that happened, as well as their marketing not doing any favors, basically pushing as many casual people away as possible, when in reality, they need as many people as possible, no matter who it is. But there is also an issue with the onboarding process with Marathon as well. So apparently Bungie has no idea how to get people to stick around anymore, and they need to be working on a better way to help people understand the game's mechanics, as well as getting their hooks into the player as much as possible. And I know the last video talked about how much I hate the use of bots to get people to stay playing a game, but with this game specifically, I think they could implement a system where there are bot player matches when someone is playing for the first time, where these bots know exactly where the player team is and track them, giving players easy wins and getting the dopamine loop into their heads and sinking the hooks into them, while also getting them used to the idea of PvP. Then over the time, they can introduce another team of beginners and get them used to the idea of losing and the cycle of making a new loadout after getting fucked up by another team. I also think that they really need to work on the UI, which as of now, they actually just released an update to a lot of the icons in the menu, so you can see what pieces of gear you're looking at a lot more clearly. But the UI still needs a lot more work and genuinely needs to become much more beginner friendly if it wants to thrive and reach anywhere near Destiny 2's numbers so that it can truly help Bungie as a studio. And I was talking about this with some of my friends, and there is a genuine chance that Marathon just becomes much cheaper, or even goes the same way that Destiny 2 did, where it may even flat out go free to play. And I honestly don't know the chances of that really happening. I think some free weekends could really help and get a lot more players in the game, but maybe going free to play isn't the best idea. I also did have another idea on how to maybe attract more casual players into the game, and honestly, it would go a step further into Marathon's roots as an IP. And maybe there is a way to satisfy both parties of PvP players in this one game simply by expanding the genres that Marathon covers. And what I mean by this is that Bungie could add genuine arena shooter gameplay into Marathon, with different maps to suit as well, or even having maps take place in specific sections of the larger extraction-centric maps. This mode could also serve the extraction audience as well, and could serve as an alternative to something like Rook runs or even solo queuing, where you could get a more specialized loadout or random loot, like how you'd get random guns or armor at the end of matches inside of D1 and 2. And I'm really just spitballing at this point, but I do genuinely believe Marathon's gunplay is absolutely astonishing. It's easily the best shooter on the market, and probably will be for years to come until Bungie decides to release another game. Like, literally, they are undefeated in that regard. That's the one thing that everybody can agree on. And I did want to mention near the end, before we do the outro, as a positive note for Destiny 2, they still have quite a large player base at the moment, even with literally no content in the game. The Steam numbers aren't that hot, but it's been tracked that 1 million players hopped on, I think it was last month alone, and actually loaded into an activity and played the game. So as many negatives as there have been for Destiny players in recent times, all it's going to really take is for Bungie to strap us in for the end and announce the next game. And the community should hopefully be okay. And the game should be fine to be laid to rest. But with that, I think we can finally call it there. But before that, I want to ask you guys what you think is going to happen with Bungie in the future, and your wish list features for a potential Destiny 3. And if you'd feel so kind, please like and subscribe, as it would really help the channel out a ton. I'll see you guys when I see you. This is Glitchy, signing off.